over the course of my life, I've learned that the way you get what you want is to have a dream, to find a teacher, to join a team, immerse yourself in the culture of positive, supportive, encouraging vibrations all around you, and then have that great foundation which ultimately leads to the two critical elements of success in your life: sacrifice and discipline. I'm so lucky in my life in that I played on three of the greatest teams in the history of basketball. The UCLA Bruins started there 45 years ago. The records still stand to this very day. Portland Trail Blazers, the youngest team in the history of the NBA to ever win the championship. It's where I played my best basketball. I was MVP of the NBA when I was 24 years old. The Boston Celtics, my boyhood dream team. Bill Russell, Red Auerbach, my heroes, my idols. I got to play for them. So even though I was part of three of the greatest teams ever, I also spent 6 years on the Clippers with Donald Sterling. So I know the difference from the top and the bottom, and I know what makes it there, and that's leadership all the time. And so here was this situation where we broke Coach Wooden's greatest admonition to us every day, which was, do your best. That's all I ask. Your best is good enough. But whatever it is you do, don't beat yourself, don't cheat yourself, don't shortchange yourself, because that's the worst kind of defeat you'll ever suffer, and you'll never get over it. We thought it was all nonsense. Every coach I ever had as a child was a John Wooden disciple. We thought everybody had John Wooden. So when he started talking to us about the pyramid of success, because he would always talk to me and say, Bill, you're the slowest learner I've ever had. And when he would tell me that, I would look back at him and say, Coach, you call me a slow learner, but that pyramid of success that you keep preaching to us about, Coach, there's only 15 human values and personal characteristics in there. It took you 14 years to put 15 words in place. Now, come on, Coach, let's pick the pace up a little bit. But we thought it was all nonsense and foolishness. And it's really simple to memorize all this stuff. Industriousness, enthusiasm, friendship, loyalty, cooperation, intentness, initiative, alertness, self-control, physical fitness, skill development, commitment to the team, poise, confidence, competitive greatness, flanked by the two external words that he added years later, faith and patience. And then he would always talk about the 7-point creed that his dad gave him when he was in high school. Make each day your masterpiece. Drink deeply from all sources of knowledge. Make friendship a fine art. Prepare for the tough times that are sure to come, and 3 others that I can never remember, but I have no memory. And then he lived by his 2 sets of 3s, and he encouraged us to make that same choice. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. That covers a lot of ground. And then he had his maxims, endless maxims. Be quick, but don't hurry. Whatever that means. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Happiness begins when selfishness ends. Never mistake activity for achievement. The worst things you could do for the ones you love are the things they could and should do for themselves. When everybody thinks alike, nobody thinks. It's okay to disagree, just don't be disagreeable. And then the one that he wrote for me on the day I graduated from UCLA, to Bill Walton. It's the things you learn after you know it all that count. John Wooden. That sits on my desk to this very day. And then he had, while he had all that stuff, the one he kept coming back to on a constant basis, he would always tell us, guys, basketball is just like life. It's not a game of size and strength, it's a game of skill, timing, and position. It's not how big you are, it's how big you play. It's not how high you jump, it's where you are and when you jump. And so I'm scratching my head and I'm saying, Coach, this makes no sense at all. You're telling me, please, that basketball is not a game of size and strength? Are you kidding me? Kareem has all the records, Shaq has all the money, and Wilt has 20,000 girlfriends. What is up with that? And he looked at me and he said, Walton, you are the slowest learner. Don't you realize it's not about stuff? It's not about material accumulation and physical gratification. It's about training the mind to become that champion, think, dream, exist to be that champion. Most importantly, though, it's about subjugating the ego. The ego, which is a good thing, which can drive you. But the ego out of control will destroy everything. Because ultimately, when things fail, it always comes back to 3 elements. Lack of honor, selfishness, and greed. And so while he was constantly doing all of this stuff to build up the foundation, what he was really trying to get to was the tools that he had used himself to overcome the adversity, because Coach Wooden was the first great player. But then, as everybody experiences, you had to stop. He got hurt and he could no longer play. So he became a high school English teacher for a salary of $3,000 a year. He took the athletic director's job, the baseball job, and the basketball job to get an extra $1,000 a year because he had a wife and 2 young children. And so he changed. And he always lived by that mantra that all progress requires change, but not all change is progress. He had a maxim and a mantra for everything. And we never got to the one about the student and the teacher, so I'll just throw it in right here. The student, you'll never learn what you don't want to know. The teacher, you have not taught until they've learned. And it's not how or what you teach, it's who the teachers are themselves. And so what he was really trying to get to on a constant basis, though, was those tools for when the ball bounced the other way, for when you were down and you couldn't get up, for when nothing was working. And that's when he talked about the motivation, what's going to drive you, the 4 most important skills in life: balance, quickness, creative imagination, empathy, the confidence needed to get the job done, the confidence developed over a lifetime of putting everything you have in to becoming who you are at that constant position, the fork in the road. And so here I was now on the Clippers, and I had left the Portland Trail Blazers because on April 18th, 1978, when I had an undiagnosed stress fracture in my foot, they injected me in my foot and ankle, lower leg, with a massive amount of pain-killing medication. And I went out and played in this game, hadn't been able to play in months, went out and tried to play, and the undiagnosed stress fracture, the bone in my foot split in half. And I spent all these years trying to chase it back and trying to get down and trying to be part of something special again. But I'm on the Clippers and nothing's working, and they can't figure it out. And so they call for this big conference at one of the LAX hotel conference rooms, and they fly in everybody from around the country, everybody from the league office in New York, all the advertising executives, the sponsors, the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, the insurance companies. They're all there. What are we going to do with Walton's foot? How are we going to? There's so much money on the line here, and it's not happening. So all day long, everybody's just arguing how it's going to play out, what's going to go on, with no resolution whatsoever. So late in the day, the guy running the meeting from New York in the NBA league office, he says, "Okay, everybody's got flights to catch. We got to come up with some sort of resolution. So if you're not a doctor, get to the side, get to the back. Doctors only in the front at the conference table at the beginning." Now, there was 12 doctors there that day. I knew them all. I had seen them all separately. This was the first time all together. So the moderator goes around and asks all the doctors, what's the future? What's the prognosis? How is this going to play out? The first one starts, he'll never play again. Next one, the pain he's got in his foot right now, it's going to only get worse. The nerve damage, the bone damage, the soft tissue damage is just irreversible. The bone in his foot is dying. We're going to have to cut his foot off. Amputation. I'm 28 years old, right? I'm saying, oh my gosh. They get to the last guy, Bill Wagner, the doctor from Whittier who ultimately fused my ankle. And so he hadn't said anything all day. He wasn't much for meetings. He was a man of action. He was Maurice Lucas. So he sat there all day, and when it came his turn to speak, he said, "I've got an idea." And all the young guys in the room, they all said, "Oh yeah, what now, doctor? What do you got now?" He said, "I got an idea. I've come up with a new surgery." "Oh, what is it, Dr. Wagner?" He explained to these doctors and the crowd there this incredibly complex surgery. 5 major incisions, top, bottom, all around the foot. Take everything out. Put all new stuff in, cut, saw, sew, you name it, just rebuild the entire foot and get to what he thought was the ultimate cause of my problems. This cartilaginous and bony bar that from birth, my calcaneus and my navicular bones were fused together. So there was no natural motion in the foot, which led to the endless string of stress fractures. And so these doctors are listening to this explanation of this surgery, and their jaws just drop, and their eyes glaze over. And when he comes to a stop, Dr. Wagner, they all look at him and they say, "That'll never work." And so he just sat there, he didn't say a word. And they said to him, "How many of these have you done, Dr. Wagner?" "I've done 10. "How many of these have worked, Dr. Wagner?" "None." And I said, "I'm going with him." All you guys want to do is cut my foot off, and this guy's giving me a chance. So I had the surgery, and it worked. It's the first guy I'd ever worked on. It took forever, but it did work. And I went back and I tried to play again, against everybody's wishes, because Dr. Wagner would tell me every day, "Bill, I'm not trying to fix you for basketball. I'm just trying to give you a life so that you can be pain-free, so that you can walk from chair to chair." But I was chasing my dream. That was what I wanted to do. Problem was that I was still on the Clippers with Donald Sterling. And so it finally dawned on me that I'd come to the end of the line there. So I engineered and I drove this trade to Boston. And so when I go into Sterling Plaza over here on Wilshire Boulevard to sign the papers, I walk in and there's Donald Sterling sitting at his ornate desk in his ostentatious throne, leering at me with that reptilian evil smile of his. And he looks at me and he goes, "Walton, if you want me to sign this paper and trade you to the Boston Celtics, I owe you a ton of money in deferred compensation," which was the economic model of the day in the NBA. It was all the money I had in the world. And he said to me, "If you want me to sign and trade you to Boston, all that money that I owe you, that you've already earned, you got to leave that here with me." Now, this money had already been litigated over countless times. I had won every single time. And he's now got the lever of power over me. I had to leave it all there. So I reached out and I grabbed his pen from across the desk, took it and signed it as big and bold and powerfully as I could. Walked out the door, never looked back. Always, though, asking myself, did he, Donald Sterling, really think that all of his money and now all of mine would ever buy back his soul? Now, I'm in Boston, right? But a bigger problem existed, because I had to pass a physical. Sure, I left all the money back here in LA, Sterling's office, but I had to pass a physical, and there's no way that I could ever pass a physical of any kind. And so I'm there in the hospital, Mass General, right there at the east end of Storrow Drive. And I'm on the hospital examining table, surrounded by the doctors with their white coats and their stethoscopes and their tongue depressors and all that, whatever they have. And my x-rays are all over the wall. And I can hear the doctors talking amongst themselves. What are we going to tell Red? We can't pass this guy. Look at his feet. Look at his knees. Look at his hands. Look at his wrist. Look at his spine. Look at his face. There's no way we can pass this guy. So Red bursts into the hospital, right, smoking his cigar. He walks in, he's puffing away, and he goes in, looks at these doctors and says, "Who are you guys, and what are you doing with my player?" And the doctor said, "Red, come over here. We can't pass this guy. Look at his feet. Look at his face." And Red goes, "Shut up. I'm in charge here." Pushes through all the doctors, comes right over to the table, stands over the top of me, and he looks down at me, smoking his cigar, and he says, "Walton, can you play?" And I looked up at him with the sad, soft eyes of a young man who just wanted a chance to be a part of something special. And I looked up at Red, and I said, "Red, I think I can. I think I can, Red." So Red takes a step back, looks around the room, takes a drag on that cigar, would have made Jerry Garcia proud as can be. His eyes are sweating, and he's just, but he's just thinking, you can just see it, and the room is deathly quiet. Finally, he exhales, and I swear that smoke came out green, and there was shamrocks and leprechauns all up against the white neon lights there. And Red, with the biggest smile on his face, he says, "He's fine, he passes, let's go, we got a game." We went and won that championship there too.